Sarah, and I'm giving the sermon today, so would you bow your heads with me again? We're going to pray. Dear God, thank you so much for today and this wonderful weather we've been having. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give my testimony and preach your word today, and I just pray that you will speak through me, and it won't be me speaking anymore, but it will be you speaking. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so as I said, I'm Sarah. In case you didn't know me, I was the one drumming. So I'm kind of pulling Pastor Monty today, and I'm drumming and preaching. Wow. I go to Hendricks High School, and I'm a senior, and I can say a lot of things about myself, but I'm going to get to talk about God today, and I really like to do that. You may be wondering what my sermon's about. I'm going to make it really simple on you. I'm going to talk about a couple things I really like, and one thing I'm kind of scared of, and that's fire. So I'm going to ask y'all, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of fire?
Hot.
Burning.
Pain.
Extreme sports.
Icy hot.
I think of all those things too, but I especially think of chemical reactions. I know, it's dirty, but I really love chemistry. No, next one. There you go. I love science in general, and I love relating how things that God has made, like chemicals and compounds and elements, relate to our lives. And more than just, oh, I'm God and I made fire. First thing to know about chemical equations is that the ones involving fire are called combustion reactions. There you go. As you can see on the screen, the starting products, starting reactant, which is called methane up there, it does not end up as methane in the end. So when a compound goes through fire, it goes through chemical change, not a physical change. And here's an example for you visual learners. Here's this piece of paper. Piece of paper, right? Well, if I stick it in the fire...
Oh gosh.
No, I can't do that.
No! Oh gosh.
I just wanted to... Okay. Well,
oh gosh.
little stuff that's over here that ended up in the fire. Those are called ashes. And those are not the same as a piece of paper. You cannot write on ashes, and they are not paper. So they're not the same thing. So that piece of paper, when I put it through the fire, went through a chemical reaction. But here's the physical change. I'm calling it a piece of paper. It's still a piece of paper. So,
It smells like burnt paper now.
a physical change does not have a chemical equation like a chemical reaction does. And I've just proven to you that when you set something on fire, it goes through a chemical change and it does not stay the same as when it started. But how is this relevant to God? Sometimes as Christians, we go through physical changes. We seem to go through this great big transformation, but in reality, we are just the same, like this piece of paper. When we accept Jesus into our lives, God does not intend for us to stay the same. While we go through the fires in our lives, we don't just go through the fire, we go through the fire. We go through it to become new. In Isaiah 42:25, it says, "Therefore, he poured out his fury on them and destroyed them in battle. They were enveloped in flames, but they refused to understand. They were consumed by fire, they did not learn their lesson." This is such a huge warning from God. How can we go through the fire and not change? If we refuse to look at our lives and accept that change is going to happen and is happening, then we've gone through the fire for no reason. One of my other favorite things in the whole entire world is trees. I love trees. Last summer, my family and I went on vacation up to Yellowstone National Park. Thank you. On parts of the park, though, there were trees that were kind of burned, and like you can kind of see in that picture, they don't have many leaves on them, and it really broke my heart. And we were talking to this park ranger about the wildfires that happen there a lot of the time, and somebody in our family or party asked, "Well, what do you think about fires?" And I was like, that is the dumbest question you could ever ask. Of course fires are bad. But to my surprise, and then thinking this park ranger should probably not be a park ranger, she was like, "Well, they're really helpful." And I was like, what? But I'm gonna read you why they're helpful. England spruce and swivel pine fir have thin bark, but these species have other adaptations to fire. Some lodgepole pines have cones that are serotinous, That is, they are glued shut by resin. The heat of a wildfire is needed to melt the resin and allow the cone to open and disperse the seeds within. This adaptation ensures that the seeds of lodgepole pines will not disperse until wildfire creates conditions that favor the establishment of seedlings. Diminish litter on the forest floor and plenty of sunlight. Aspen similarly release sprouts in the high temperatures to grow new, healthier little trees. So fires are essential to the Yellowstone environment, just like they're essential to our well-being. If you look into your bulletins, if you have one, or up on the screen, here's a verse from Malachi. And actually, I'd rather you look up on the screen because it has this important word in there that it doesn't have in the bulletin. But you see that God describes refining us like silver and purifying us like gold. God also describes burning away the dross. Dross, in case you didn't know, is the impurities or waste products that are removed during smelting of molten metal. Dross is seen as metallic. It looks like it could fit in with the silver, but it doesn't. It's not pure enough to be a part of the metal. God sees the dross in our lives. Sometimes we hide it really well. Sometimes it's just on the surface where everyone can see it. Either way, God, as our refiner, knows that our dross is plaguing us. God knows that we can be even more pure. God has burned away a lot of dross in my life, especially recently. My dross included selfishness, contentment, and pride. But God came in with a huge fire and said, Sarah, this may hurt, but it's time for some change. God's fire left me down on my knees, but the refinement that God wanted for my life was knowing that God is in control and not me. It took a few bouts in the furnace for me, and I'm sure it will take a few more to fully understand it. If you look back to our chemical equation, like all combustion equations, you see that oxygen, which is the one that says O2, in case you're wondering, oxygen is the only reason our reactant has this equation and it burns. That oxygen, methane would just be methane, and it wouldn't get to change into carbon dioxide and water. Our oxygen, for many different reasons, is God. We need oxygen to survive, just like we need God to really survive. Therefore, just like oxygen in this equation, God is the only one that can change us. But when we go through the fire, it's normal. God isn't punishing us. Most importantly, God does not make bad things happen. Instead, God uses bad things to help us grow. Take, for example, a more recent event. I'm sure you all remember the Labor Day fires in Bastrop. I can't imagine the pain and anger of the residents of Bastrop, and I don't know how it feels to have my house burned to the ground. But I do know that our God is a God of love. He did not send the fire to punish the residents. The residents of Bastrop could just hate God for everything that happened, and they could remain helpless. But instead, they get to rebuild and they get to regrow. I'm sure it's really painful to lose everything, as the residents of Bastrop know. I'm sure every chemical compound knows. But the change that goes on in our lives is even greater than we can imagine. We can say that the end justifies the means. As I was praying about and thinking about my sermon for about 8 months now, I began to ask myself, why would God want to refine us? Didn't He prove that He loved us when He sent His Son to die for us? Why does He want us to suffer just so He can make us better? One of the most insightful people I know in my life asks instead, what if while we think we're suffering, our perception changed? What we perceive as suffering could be really nothing in the big picture, not just in our world, but in God's kingdom. In the book of Job, as Job is complaining about his life and going on about how God has wronged him and whatnot for about 38 chapters, God finally speaks to Job, and his reply is, "Where were you when I created the world?" And it's pretty harsh, but it's true. What do we know, really, in the scheme of things? What if we saw our struggles as blessings? What if we recognize that while we go through the fire, no matter how painful it is, we're going to come out even better than before? What if we rejoiced in that? Someone must have told you before, God doesn't give you something you can't handle. I read a blog recently that totally refutes that statement. It challenged its readers to go find a passage in the Bible where it says that. And the reality is that you can't find that passage in the Bible because it doesn't exist. Although it kind of sucks that we're not strong enough or good enough to handle our lives, the amazing thing is that God promises to carry us through our hurting and through our fire. That's love.